So a big portion of our life is affected by how we feel. Let me give you just a quick list about the feelings that affect our lives. Number one, it's how you feel about the past. It's easy to let the past overwhelm you instead of let the past instruct you. How to feel about the past hurts and the past losses and the past difficulties and the times you failed and the times it didn't work, the accumulation of all of that. How you feel about that is going to greatly affect your future in your life. One of the major things that affects your life is how you feel about the future. Our life is affected by two major things. One is price and the other is promise. And it's not that easy to pay the price if you can't see the promise. If we had the high assurance with great probability of how it's going to work out, do you think we would hesitate to pay? The answer is no. But everybody hesitates to pay if the future isn't clear. I will put myself through the paces, right? What would we do for an extraordinary promise? Answer, the most unbelievable things. Would you crack the books? Would you burn the midnight oil? Would you engage in the extra thoughts and the extra disciplines if the promise was adequate? And the answer is, of course. But who wants to read? Who wants to burn the midnight oil? Who wants to put themselves through the paces if the promise isn't clear? Important, price and promise. When that nagging voice within us brings up the possibility of failure, it takes discipline to admit our errors and recognize our limitations. The voice of the human ego speaks to all of us. Sometimes the voice of ego says that we should magnify our value beyond our results. It leads us to exaggerate, to not be totally honest. It takes discipline to be totally honest, both with ourselves and with others. Be certain of one thing: every exaggeration of the truth, once detected by others, destroys our credibility and makes all that we say and do suspect. As soon as a business colleague figures out that we tend to exaggerate, guess what? They'll always think we exaggerate, and they'll never quite hold us in the same regard again. Never. The tendency to exaggerate, distort, or even withhold the truth is an inherent part of all of us. It takes discipline to change a habit, because habits are formed a little bit each day, every day, every day. Once habits are formed, they act like a giant cable. They act like a nearly unbreakable instinct that only long-term disciplined activity can change. We must unweave every strand of the cable of habits slowly and methodically until the cable that once held us in bondage becomes nothing more than scattered strands of wire. It takes the consistent application of a new discipline, a more desirable one, to overcome one which is less desirable. It takes discipline to plan. It takes discipline to execute our plan. It takes discipline to look with full objectivity at the results of our applied plan. And it takes discipline to change either our plan or our method of executing that plan if the results are poor. It takes discipline to be firm when the world throws opinions at our feet. It takes discipline to ponder the value of someone else's opinion when our pride and our arrogance leads us to believe that we are the only ones with the answers. With this consistent discipline applied to every area of our lives, we can discover untold miracles and uncover unique possibilities and opportunities. The wisest man in ancient Greece, the greatest philosopher the world has ever known, was a man named Socrates. In fact, Socrates made wisdom his profession. Philosopher means lover of wisdom in ancient Greek. And because he didn't have another job, people were always asking Socrates, "So what do you do for a living?" He was definitely smart enough to figure out that he had to have an answer, so he made up his own job title, philosopher. But when people asked Socrates, "What is wisdom?" he always gave the same answer: "I don't know." In fact, Socrates never claimed to know much of anything, except how to ask questions. And by asking questions, he would prove to other people that they didn't know what they thought they knew or were certain of. Everybody in Greece agreed that Socrates was the wisest man in Greece. But unlike King Solomon,
The philosopher Socrates didn't have great wealth. The wisest man in Greece was poor. King Solomon managed to run a huge household with many wives and homes and lots of children, and he accomplished this without any discord or unhappiness. But Socrates had no home life at all. The wisest man in Greece was married to a famous and terrible nag, and they had no children. Socrates, the wisest man in Greece, just went to the marketplace every day and hung around and asked people questions and hoped to get invited to a banquet so he wouldn't have to go home and face his wife. King Solomon was honored by all the great leaders of his time, but Socrates, the wisest man in Greece, didn't even have any support among the powerful people in his own country. Their sons would go to Socrates and learn what they could from the philosopher, but the powerful families of Athens, the Greek city where Socrates lived, got tired of Socrates' questions. They grew exasperated with the way he was teaching the youth of Greece that nobody knows anything for sure. So they accused the wisest man in Greece of corrupting their children. Instead of honoring the greatest philosopher who ever lived, the Athenians sentenced Socrates to death. Unless he would take back what he taught, unless he would apologize. But Socrates didn't take it back. He didn't apologize. Socrates cheerfully drank down a cup of poison and just sat there calmly saying goodbye to his few faithful students, asking questions the whole time. Solomon and Socrates, two very wise men, but two very different destinies. Great wisdom is no guarantee of anything, but to those who really care about it, wisdom is its own reward.
In our lives, especially when we're being reactive, information comes in, right? We're at an event, we're paying attention to how people treat us, we're studying something, we're trying to learn something, and we're just going about our regular day. Information is coming in. How people perceive us, the cause and effect of events, things are just happening. Information comes into the brain. From that point, the information immediately goes into interpretation. And what this usually means is interpretation in the fast reactive thing is safe, unsafe, good, bad, like it, don't like it, recognize it, don't recognize it. Been there, done that, unfamiliar, familiar, certain, uncertain, fear, safe. All these things start triggering. It's pretty unconscious and it's pretty fast. Our biases come into play. It's just that speed, spontaneous, reactive part of us. And that's not always bad. Sometimes it can be good, right? Sometimes it can be good. Interpretation can be that event, that's good for me. Or that event, that's bad for me. But usually it's like a snap judgment. Think about that. Most when we're talking about an unconscious level, it's like a snap judgment, automatic. Like you like her or don't like her. Feel safe, don't feel safe. It's very fast. Then the next level, and this is not always linear, of course, because your brain is not left brain, right brain kind of methodology. Your brain's more of a spider web of interconnectedness that is something we still don't understand. Okay? You can study everything in neuroscience and you might learn something about this lobe or that cortex region, but then only to find out that later on, a year later, like, well, actually it seems like it's also communicating over here. It's a spider web of unbelievable intelligence that's happening. And everything can be hundreds of milliseconds of transitions between neural networks. It's unbelievably fast, unbelievably capable. So this is just for our understanding. It's not necessarily real world linear like this, but what tends to happen is as information comes in, good, bad, we also then move it to a level of, well, what does this mean to me? Identity. What does this mean to me? What does this either mean to me or what does this say about me? How does this apply to me? And if we're not conscious here, this is going to be really troublesome. Some of you discovered that yesterday, I bet, when you released a few things. Sometimes we have these events in our life that we take on and we just assume it meant something about us. And we didn't realize, no, that's more of a statement about them than it is about us, right? Sometimes when you're hurt or someone was rude to you, it had nothing to do with you. Raise your hand if you follow. It had nothing to do with you. But if you're not careful, you could say, mean person, unsafe, means I'm bad child. Rude behavior, uncertain about this, I must not belong. Terrible situation, I feel bad, I can never be safe again. How many follow how this happens? This is why we have to be very, very, very observational of our own thoughts and feelings, because how these things get labeled can really change our lives forever.
And one of the best things you could possibly be is an inspirational example. So that's not nothing. That's something. Live properly in your defiance of the crowd, right? Make your own course. Allow yourself to be guided by your own genuine principles. And that it does that as a consequence of confronting the world with courage and truth. And I think that's right. And I do think that that means that the soul participates in something eternal, which is the attempt of being itself to transform what's unnecessarily painful and malevolent into what's good.
I think the parameter, the principle, the value, the ethic that actually helps us continue with perseverance and patience is hope. Hope is that one element that can keep us going. The worst thing to happen in life is to lose hope and be hopeless. So if we're sitting there waiting for our turn to come, hope against hope. One day, I will also have my time and my place. When, how, we do not know, because these are factors that are completely beyond our
pain plus reflection equals progress. If you take away reflection out of that equation, all you're left with is pain. Right? If pain plus reflection equals progress, if you take away reflection, all you're left with is pain, there's no progress. And for a lot of us, when we're experiencing pain, when we're experiencing stress, when we're experiencing pressure, when we're experiencing challenges, we forget to reflect. And when you forget to reflect, you lose the opportunity for the real progress. We forget to reflect because we get distracted. We try to avoid pain, or we try to numb pain. But when we reflect on pain, we have the opportunity to have progress in our lives.
Treat yourself like someone you love. Treat yourself like someone you love.
To come. You know, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's simple. But you know, a lot of people say, I know this stuff. Well, if you're not doing it, you don't know it. You understand it. And understanding at $3 will almost get you a cup of Starbucks these days, you know? It's really nice to understand things, but that doesn't change anything. You gotta get in your body and actually do it. But I've learned enough of these patterns that now, over the last 20 years or so, of the 30 years of my career, I'm the guy that gets the call when the fire starts. You know, when the athlete is burning down on national television and something's gotta be done right now to turn them around. And, you know, I either get them or I don't, and for 30 years I've gotten them. That's how I built my reputation. And you've gotta produce results right now. And I'm able to do that because of understanding these need structures I'm going to talk to you about. Or I get the call when the child's going to commit suicide, or the adult. And in 30 years, you know, knock on wood, I've never lost one suicide in 30 years. It doesn't mean I won't someday, but I never have, not one single time out of thousands of suicide attempts. And It's again because of understanding these needs I'm going to talk to you about. I get the phone call, in the middle of the night, true story, it's the President of the United States saying, Tony, they're going to impeach me in the morning. What should I do? And I say, could you call me sooner? True story,
Discovering your why is just the beginning. In order to enjoy all the benefits of having a clearly articulated why, you'll need to have the courage and discipline to use it. Like Thomas Edison said, vision without execution is hallucination. There is an ideal order for implementing your why, though sometimes reality does get in the way, and it all starts with you. Our natural tendency is to start with the tangible. We define our value by what we do.